Labour's released the migration figures for the past year. I think it's September to September they actually cover, and they are devastating. But you wouldn't be able to get that from the news necessarily. And at first, this would seem like a Labour victory. And in fact, the Labour Party promised 2 years ago that they would cut net migration to 200,000 a year.
Which is still an absurdly large number.
It is indeed. Don't worry, we'll be getting to that and breaking that down a little bit more. But this is, at the time, Shadow Minister Darren Jones saying that the figures were extremely high. And of course, do we believe them? No. Labour, of course, have an ideological and sort of self-serving interest in carrying on mass migration. One, because they care more about people outside of Britain than the British people themselves. And two, they're importing new voters, and that's how they survive. And so, obviously, they have no interest in actually reducing migration. But you would think from headlines like this from the BBC, UK net migration drops sharply to 204,000, sorry. No, is that right? Yes. In a year to June, down 80% from its peak in 2023. So, at the face of it, that would sound good, wouldn't it?
At the face of it, it sounds as though they've actually kept to a pledge that they made 2 years ago.
Well, technically they have, but not in the way that you would expect.
Not in a way that's actually going to be beneficial demographically.
If it was minus 204,000, we netted out 204,000, that still wouldn't be good enough.
It would be a start.
I'll take it, but that still wouldn't be good enough. So
there's millions to go, aren't there?
Yeah.
And here's The Guardian as well. Net migration to UK dropped 69% year on year, ONS figures show. Again, touch misleading, because people would go away from this thinking, okay, well, less people are coming into the country, wouldn't you? That's what you would get from that, because the net migration is down. Here's The Independent. Net migration to UK drops by 2/3 as fewer people come to Britain for work or study, which is an interesting interpretation. I'm not entirely sure about that. But the BBC also has a very similar headline here when they reported on it a second time. Sharp fall in UK net migration with drop in arrivals for work and study. And maybe technically there has been a slight drop, but that's not the whole trend.
A slight drop from an insane all-time high.
Wasn't it nearly 1 million 1 year? It was like 900 and something.
It's like when they say inflation is down, like from 7 or 8% down to 5%. That's not good. That's still not great.
That's terrible.
Like I'll take that. It's better than it being higher, but it's still terrible. It's still disastrous.
There is also the point that we still can't trust any of these figures. I think the net high point for it was it in 2024? The numbers were revised nearer the end of the year.
There's an extra 270,000. We'll be getting to that.
Yes, there was 270,000 that we had just missed that then got added into the figures. So you can't trust these figures as they are released.
I will be going over all of this, don't worry. So even the New York Times across the Atlantic got in on this. The British public thinks immigration is up. It's actually down sharply. Wow. Thanks for that condescending headline, New York Times. And the reality is, if you could zoom out a little bit on that, Samson, so we can see it, we can see here the big spike. That spike peaked, I think, in 2023 there. Absolutely massive, unprecedented. So by getting immigration down, it's still higher than the pre-COVID levels anyway.
And all non-EU as well.
And also look at this. EU people, obviously, net decline. So people from Europe, the kind of immigrants that are at least compatible with our society, are going. Also, record numbers of British people are going. So the untold story here is, well, actually, immigration is down in part because there was a massive spike in the first place. Massive Tory betrayal, basically, is one way of putting it. And so it's returning to still above COVID levels, which was still too high in the first place, as well as the fact that record numbers of white Europeans are leaving, basically. And that includes British people.
So they say that being replaced is just purely a conspiracy theory. That's just not happening. You're mad. You're a tinfoil hat wearer if you say that. That's not happening. Well, that graph right there. I mean, if the EU or the British citizens are a net negative, and people coming in are anything in the positive, then how can...
It's only a matter of time.
There's no other way to describe it. There's no other way to describe it than a replacement.
The way they get around this is they say that the conspiracy theory part is that it's deliberate, but they frame it in such a way that it makes it sound like, well, you're not being replaced, and they sort of weasel their words a little bit. I've noticed this sort of thing where they say, oh, the deliberate thing, and actually lots of people that are talking about this are saying, well, it might not necessarily be a deliberate attempt to replace us in some sort of conspiratorial sense, but that's what's going to happen anyway, regardless of the intention. But that's quibbling over details.
Accident.
Yeah.
Right.
That's still just as bad.
We're being replaced.
Yeah, that's the worrying thing.
And it's not true anyway, because immigration policy is obviously a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, similarly, you can go and find, was it Peter Mandelson saying that they basically sent out squads in the late 90s after New Labour got in to find people to rub the right's nose in diversity?
Well done.
I mean, that there couldn't be a stronger declaration of intent in that statement.
And if we're to look at the actual numbers, Leo shared them, which was very helpful. So the net migration, obviously, we looked at that figure, but immigration is nearly 900,000 this year, but emigration is nearly 700,000. So that's why that we get this number, is that there's still large immigration, nearly 1 million people in the country, massively unsustainable, undesirable, also largely from outside of Europe now, from non-European countries, which means that these are people that are more likely to cause problems. But also we're losing lots of Europeans as well, which is devastating, because basically that emigration figure is productive people leaving, and that immigration figure is unproductive people coming in, people that cause crime. Emigration are the people that you can live alongside, and the immigration is certainly not, sort of giving you the long and short of it there. And as Maven rightfully points out here, the story here is people, especially EU migrants, are choosing to go home. Net EU migration hit 332k a year in 2016. Today it's at minus 71k. So that's a massive change in a relatively short period of time. And that's largely because of what's happening to the country, I imagine. It's disincentivizing Europeans. Like, lots of Polish people are going home because Poland's now probably a nicer place to live than Britain.
And it definitely is.
Who can blame them?
I was just about to say exactly that. Who can blame them? If you're from Scandinavia or Belgium or Holland or Germany or whatever.
Maybe not Germany.
Why would you stay here when your home country would probably be nicer now? Why would you?
There's no incentive to stay. And I mean, I want them to be happier, so if they want to go home, that's fair enough. I'm not going to talk them out of it. But at the same time, they're the kind of migrants who I'm most likely to miss, because they're actually contributing and I can get along with them. Like, I've got a certain amount of camaraderie with fellow Europeans, whereas people from outside of Europe or North America, or just basically, the former Anglo colonies, I've got no kinship or overlap with them. They cause problems. That's why they cause so much crime. That's why they leech off us and don't feel bad about it. And there's more here as well, from Nomus Events, saying they're doing exactly what they said they would do, using net migration figures to have visa expiries offset the millions of people who arrived in the provisional figures. And this is basically the idea that you can use visas expiring, and they don't actually have to know for certain these people have left. It's just that the visa's expired, therefore they've left.
Yeah, I got the year wrong, but he's saying here the 2022 figures were revised upwards by 270,000 people over the course of 2 years. So we can get the figures now, but then a few years from now, they might just go, we lost a few 100,000 down the back of the sofa. So actually it ends up being like 500,000 total. Something like that, net immigration into the country.
Thankfully, quite a few people actually picked up on a lot of these things. People weren't hoodwinked. I saw Matt Goodwin here pointing it out that, yes, actually, don't believe the hype. Lots of Brits and Europeans have left. That's part of the reason. And nearly 900,000 came into Britain last year. So this is no victory, which is correct. There he is talking about 75% of all immigrants into the UK now coming from outside of Europe, which, again, are some of the worst offenders in terms of sponging off of us and causing crime. Even Patrick Christie's of GB News was saying asylum seekers now make up 44% of net migration, which is an unusual way of putting it, because they're at about 100,000 a year, and so they're almost half of net migration. But that's a weird way of looking at it, because they count towards the figures anyway.
What we can use that figure for is, in that case, to say that, in terms of overall amount of people who've come into the country, if you just have it as gross figures, is about 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly 1 million people, not from Europe, not from countries where we want anybody, came into this country to take the place of a load of British people who left.
Exactly.
And to victimise, demonise, and stagnate the wages of everybody else who's still here.
Mm-hmm. And Morgoth gets it right, not that I'm surprised, saying that the immigration numbers aren't as peachy when you factor in native outflow, but we've been vindicated in viewing the Tories as uniquely rancid and treacherous. Which I think is completely fair.
Does Morgoth ever have a bad take?
I've never seen that.
I don't think so.
No. One thing I did find interesting is a representative of Migration Watch UK went on to Farage's show on GB News and started talking about the replacement of the white British, and he was basically saying, like, it's still way too high. We're still being replaced. And Farage just says, wow, strong stuff, which I didn't quite know what to make of, because he didn't push back on it, which is a very low expectation, but he sort of allowed it. Which it's interesting that this is going on GB News now, that they're saying this, they're not necessarily pushing back, because I can remember a few years ago that they might have pushed back on that sort of thing and saying, well, actually, no. But I don't know. It's still a little bit tepid for my taste. I think that this should be the point of a spear, a point of attack, that, white British people, the people that this country is meant to serve above all, are being replaced in our own country, which is not a good thing, obviously, for us.
Well, it's the most important topic of our age.
Easily.
Everything else is downstream from it, really.
Well, also, if we fix that, we fix so many other problems that are caused in our society.
Of course, yeah.
Economic, crime, social, all of it is alleviated by dealing with this problem.
I completely agree with Steve Bannon on this. Obviously, American, talking about America first, but, he says the same thing. Everything else is downstream. The war in Ukraine, the war in Israel, everything. The economy, everything. If we're not going to deport millions of people, then why are we even, focusing on anything else, really? Because that's the foundational issue. Completely agree with him.
No, I very much agree, yeah. So now on to speculating whether these numbers actually reflect the reality, because a recent study found that 1 in 5 people living in the UK were born abroad, which, if the figures are to be believed, surely shouldn't be possible, right? At the current rates of immigration and the census data and the like. Surely this wouldn't be achievable. But apparently it is, and it says, the shock study last night sparked calls for an emergency census to stop the public from being kept in the dark about the true scale of the UK's foreign-born population. It analysed revised immigration data published this week by the Office for National Statistics and found around 19.6% of the UK's population was born abroad. This was up from 16% recorded in the last census of 2021. And it carries on to say, in the year 2022, it saw the fastest rate of population growth since 1828, which is, massive. This is sort of following the Industrial Revolution, when obviously you could have and afford a population explosion, but obviously we can't do that anymore. But it basically says that 1 in every 25 people in the UK today has arrived in the last 4 years, which is insane.
Thanks, Boris.
Yeah, cheers for that.
I appreciate that.
So what?
And even that early 19th century, 1828, there wouldn't be foreign invaders.
No, there'd be British people, wouldn't
right, yeah.
Our own people.
With an antithetical worldview, here to literally invade for Gibbs. It wasn't that, was it, in the 1820s? So,
and also part of it would be, lower infant mortality, better quality of food, and higher quality of living, allowing this to happen, rather than people coming in and suppressing the quality of living. So it's entirely different.
Chalk
and in
and
fact,
cheese.
To put it into perspective, this net migration is still the equivalent of a city the size of York, whose history obviously stretches back thousands of years.
Eboricum, wasn't it? It's Roman era.
Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm. I believe so, yeah. Of course, Jorvik under the Vikings. But no, forget about our history. We're just going to create a new town every year with migrants. And of course, hollow out our own towns because many people are leaving. And in fact, some of the reality here is talked about by Migration Watch, and it says nearly 1.5 migrants from India, Bangladesh and Pakistan arrived in Britain between June 2020 and June 2025. Just 250,000 left Britain in the same period. Net migration of 1.146 million, which is massive. I don't understand what 1 million Indians adds to Britain. I've seen what India is like, and what happens, as we can see from Swindon outside, is that they recreate the conditions of India. That's exactly what happens, especially considering they live in their own communities and push out other people, right?
And Bangladesh and Pakistan.
We know all about the problems that they've caused.
They just recreate that. You took a walk down Manchester Road for a short video.
I did.
And it was horrible.
Bangladeshis, the nation associated with things like acid attacks. Pakistan, of course, is perpetually associated with the grooming gangs. This adds nothing to our country. This is not GDP generating either, because they don't contribute economically. In fact, in London, Bangladeshis and Pakistanis are more likely to be living in poverty than even black Caribbeans or black Africans. So the argument that they're adding anything is insane to me. Here's the Centre for Migration Control saying nearly 850,000 visas were granted in the last 12 months. And the number that went to doctors was just 7,200. So the doctor and engineer argument is sort of shrinking, isn't it?
I'd be willing to bet that of that 7,200, quite a few were fraudulent anyway.
I would imagine so. How many of them were legitimately qualified, I wonder? I would say...
that is an insane number. We must be mad, literally mad, to have done such a thing. Well, we haven't, right? It's a small cabal of people at the top that are doing it to us against our will. But what an insane number. Remember what our population, if it were normal or normalised, would be, 60 million, 65, 70 million top, something like that?
No.
In that ballpark?
Are you talking about if there wasn't migrants in the country, if it was just the British people?
Well, if it's England and Wales,
60 odd, isn't it?
45 million.
Is it that?
Been about,
is it as low as that?
Yeah.
Is it?
For the past 30, 40 years. Yeah.
So to just whack on 800,000 here and 1.1 million there, that's crazy.
And this isn't also counting all of the people who are going to be overstaying visas, disappearing into the system.
All these numbers are lowballed, yeah.
Yeah, we have a certain idea of the amount of illegal immigrants who are in the country according to official records. Those who are actually recorded or caught or put into the system. Who knows how many just get into the country and then disperse?
Well, we don't have numbers for the people who've never interacted with the system, do we? The people who've successfully got in the country illegally and were not caught at any point?
No, they just work cash in hand at a barber shop.
And the
or
best,
a vape shop.
The best estimates that I've seen are stuff that refers more to sewage output and unironically, and the amount of phone contracts in the country as well.
Supermarkets?
Yeah, supermarkets. All of that being massively over what you would expect if we only had the official population in the country that we have recorded. So there's at least probably 2, 3, 4, 5 million extra people in the country that aren't picked up by any of these figures.
A true figure is something like, you add up everything, the data that comes out from, say, Tesco's and Sainsbury's and Asda for toilet roll, for example, and that will give you a truer reading than anything the Home Office.
And people in Britain as well.
Water usage, right?
There are also people in Britain now that don't use toilet roll.
Well, there's that. Yeah, there's that as well.
It's not the perfect.
Right, it's not even the perfect. Right.
That's even going to lowball it. So it's worth mentioning as well that refugees and people granted refugee status, usually this is on this hand side is how many years they've been in the country, and obviously the percentage of them in these income brackets. So for the largest one is less than £10,000 a year, which means you're a significant net financial negative. And you only start really contributing if you're the right-hand side of this orange bar. So that is such a small minority of people. That's less than 5% after 8 years, perhaps?
Yeah, net tax contribution as opposed to the benefits that you take from the benefits that we get from the system. is about £41,000 if I remember correctly. So you have to be earning on average about 41 grand.
Maybe even not the orange. It would be
the
like
black.
The black and the
black and the purple.
Yeah. So that's a small sliver, but the rest of them we're paying for ourselves. And of course, these people are known to cause so many problems. Many asylum seekers, of course, Axel Rudibagana, whatever his name is, the son of Rwandan asylum seekers. So what we're doing is we're paying for people to murder children for us. Great, thanks. And speaking of the finances, Leo here has actually got a good example of it stifling innovation. So Ocado started using robots and automation. He's got a very long post here. But because of the wage being so low, because we're importing all of the cheap labour, like, it's similar to sort of how slavery in the ancient world used to stifle economic innovation, and it contributed to economic stagnation. The same thing is going on here, that without the financial pressures to innovate, well, people don't. They just use the cheap labour to do it that way. Whereas we could have a situation where, you know, we have automation and robots doing it with no need to have immigration at all in the first place. We can have lots of jobs filled, you know, even with just the white British population. But we can't even get to that point now because migration is preventing us from transitioning into the natural progression of our economy, basically.
I mean, this is essentially, and I don't want to play into slave narratives or anything like that, because frankly, at this point, I don't care. Sorry, I don't care about what may have happened to your ancestors hundreds of years ago. I don't. But it is essentially an evolution of that same process of
same sort of philosophy
of saying those in the elite upper class, when they become too decadent, when they are too disconnected from those beneath them, when they don't have any noblesse oblige, they decide, well, it would be a lot cheaper for us to just import a load of foreigners that can essentially be our slaves. This is slavery under a different name. And
it's because you pay them a small wage.
Indentured slavery.
Yeah. Indentured servitude, you could say. And it means that they are entirely beholden to us, and we can just get whatever we want for as cheap as possible, and who cares about the consequences? I mean, that's basically what happened to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
When all of a sudden, like, the average Roman would have looked about and gone, why is everyone in Rome Syrian?
There was that famous study, wasn't there, that saw the replacement of Romans in Rome that preceded the collapse of the Roman Empire. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's a recurring thing throughout history, because apparently after a certain point of civilizational peaking, then your leaders just go completely insane.
You can check out my epochs on Tiberius Gracchus if you're interested in a true deep dive and quotes from Plutarch and stuff on that very issue.
Yeah,
10 plug that.
Yeah, there is quite, but by the end of the Roman Empire, there's quite a lot of like Roman philosophers and thinkers and writers just complaining about how foreign everyone is, isn't there?
By the end of the Roman Republic.
Oh, Republic.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So the final thing I wanted to look at is, of course, all of this was done because of my GDP, which we have very clear data here, and the forecasts into the future even, it's pretty much stagnant, right? Before mass migration, GDP growth was 4 or 5%, and, you know, every 10 years, the size of our economy would potentially double, right? And so this stagnant GDP growth is not normal, and in fact, it's a law of mathematics, and, you know, it's easier to explain this at a personal level. If a millionaire only grew their wealth by £15,000, you would say they had a bad year that year, right? That's not very much money. Whereas, you know, with an economy, if it's only growing 1.5% and it's worth, 2.9 trillion, something like that, that's disastrous. You've massively failed, and probably the only reason there's not degrowth is because of innovation in technology and things like that are propping it up. And so the real effect is that immigration is making you poorer, it's making life more dangerous, it's causing fractures in your society, and it's only going to get worse because more Europeans are leaving, more white British people are leaving, and more foreigners are coming in. And of course, no one's addressing the fact really in the mainstream that this is no success, and in fact the figures are still more or less the same, it's just that more people are leaving.
and ultimately ends in a sectarian nightmare. That's the worst. That's sort of the most terrifying thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
You end up with South Africa or Yugoslavia style situation.
If this carries on, that'll be inevitable. That'll be our future, guaranteed.
Thanks, Boris.
Mm.
With the GDP, isn't it true that after this budget as well, is it debt to GDP is going to rise to its highest ever?
I would imagine so, yeah, because there's going to be a lot of
it's going to be something like
deficit spending.
Deficit spending is going to be near enough to like 40% of total GDP or something. I might be getting that wrong, but if you want to correct me, please let me know in the comments.
I know that 1 in every £1 spent by the government is spent on interest, which Rachel Reeves herself admitted in her budget, and also that our debt to GDP ratio is something like 83% at the minute.
I thought it was more. I thought it was like 100%.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, our national debt is something like 2.5 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why our taxes need to go up. Which is why we're all poor. Which is why the system is designed to keep you poor. They constantly want to be propping up all of these people by taking money from you, and then they wonder why the GDP doesn't grow when all of your money is being taxed away from you, so you have no disposable income to spend anything on.
Or they could cut spending, but the government front bench won't do that because their own backbenchers will coup them into non-existence.
Mm-hmm.
So on we go. Round and round we go.
I guess so.
Brilliant.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.